I'm Jesse Jackson. I was born in Greenville, South Carolina during the war, October 8th, 1941. I am married to Jacqueline Lavigne Brown. We have 5 children. We've been married for 25 years. I spent all of my adult life fighting for social justice in this country, impacting upon public policy. I was quite involved in helping to change the climate, helped us to realize a public accommodations bill, and then the right to vote, and then open housing. Worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his lifetime. Spent a lot of time confronting corporations that they might be just and fair to those who had been locked out historically. Spent a lot of time the last few years expanding my understanding of foreign policy and having an impact there. With some sense of joy, I was able to go to Syria and to negotiate the release of Lieutenant Robert Goodman, and then later that same year to go to Cuba, to bring Americans back from Cuba. I confronted Gorbachev and challenged him before the world the question of human rights and the lack thereof inside the Soviet Union. And so 25 years of public service in domestic and foreign policy are the features of my life and my work that I take to the American public as I seek to alter the course of our country in pursuit of jobs and peace and justice.
Hello there, I'm Congressman Dick Gephardt from Missouri. The Gephardt family is here in our home in Great Falls, Virginia. Of course, we have a home in St. Louis and a home here in Virginia in the Washington area. I'd like to introduce my family. First is Jane Gephardt, my wife. We were married 21 years ago. We met at Northwestern University where we were both students. Jane is originally from Columbus, Nebraska, where her family and her parents still live. Our oldest son is Matt. He's 16 years old. He just got his driver's license, and he's quite proud of that. Next is Kate, our youngest. She's 9. And then Christine is 14. I'm from St. Louis. My father was a milk truck driver there. My mother was a secretary. I went to the public schools in St. Louis, graduated from Northwestern University in speech and history, got my law degree from the University of Michigan Law School in 1965. Returned to St. Louis, spent some time in the Missouri Air National Guard, practiced law in a firm in St. Louis, was an active in the Democratic Party there as a precinct captain and a ward committeeman, and ran for the Board of Aldermen in St. Louis and served there for 5 years. In 1976, I was elected to the Congress. I've served on the Budget Committee and the Ways and Means Committee, and for the last 3 years, I've been chairman of the House Democratic Caucus. The Gephardt family will be very active this summer in Iowa and New Hampshire, campaigning for the presidency, trying to tell the American people why I want to be president and what we believe in, what we care about, what we'd like to do if I'm elected president.
Hello, I'm Paul Simon. I serve in the United States Senate from Illinois, and I'm here in our Washington apartment with my wife, Jean, my son, Martin. Our daughter, Sheila, is at our rural home out in southern Illinois. She practices law. I started off as a small-town newspaper publisher because we had some underworld characters who were trying to dominate our area of the state. The next thing I knew, I found myself in politics. And I served in the state legislature, served as lieutenant governor of Illinois, served 10 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, and now I serve in the United States Senate. I also write. I've written 11 books. Basically, I believe that the tools of government have to be used to move on the problems of our nation and our world, and that's why I'm seeking the presidency.
My name is Joe Biden. I've been a United States Senator for 15 years, as a matter of fact, since I've been 29 years old. And as a 29-year-old kid, when I ran for the Senate, I did it with a great deal of enthusiasm as a father and a husband, and I thought that I could help make things better. And you know, I still feel that way. I think government has an important role to play to make things better for our children. And now here I am, chairman of the Judiciary Committee and the number 2 Democrat in the Foreign Relations Committee. And as I contemplated running for the presidency, I thought about what did my world travels and travels around this country teach me in my 15 years experience as a senator. And one thing came through crystal clear to me, and that is that the story of the journey of America for the past 200 years has been that we have always provided better for the next generation than for ourselves. And I'm not sure we're doing that now, but I think we have a phenomenal opportunity to make things better for our children and ourselves. We can make an education system work, and it's not working now. We can, in fact, do something about the dread of nuclear war. We can deal with our trade problem and promote American jobs that pay real money, not poverty wages. We can do all this and much more. The next President of the United States has a phenomenal opportunity to make a contribution to this country in a way that's going to make life better for our children. Our parents did it for us, and we should do it for our children, so that we can stand before them as they stood before us and say, we've kept the faith.
Hi, I'm Mike Dukakis. I'm in my 9th year as the governor of Massachusetts, and I'm a candidate for the presidency of the United States. And I'm a very lucky guy, because my parents came to this country as Greek immigrants way back in 1912 and 1913. And each of them, in a very real sense, is an American success story. My dad became the first American-trained Greek-speaking doctor in metropolitan Boston. And my mother was the first Greek young woman ever to go beyond high school in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and she became a school teacher. So when I talk in this campaign, as I will often, about creating genuine economic opportunity for every citizen in every part of this land, that's not only something I believe in very strongly, I grew up with it. I grew up in a wonderful community, this town of Brookline, Massachusetts, and so did Kitty. She was a freshman when I was a senior in high school, and I didn't know her very well. It took me about 9 years to find her. Sports was an important part of my life. I was always out on the ball fields and the playing fields of this town, ran the marathon way back in 1951, and finished a pretty creditable 57th. I went on to school at Swarthmore College, and then went into the Army and served in Korea, and came back to law school and began my political career in 1962 as a state legislator here in Massachusetts. My folks used to say something to me all the time, which I never forgot. They used to say to me, much has been given to you, and much is expected of you. I believe that very, very strongly, not just for myself and the members of my family, but for all of us who care very deeply about our community and about our country. That's why it's so exciting to be a candidate for the presidency, to be able to offer whatever I can to make this country a better place, not just for my family, not just for the people of this community, but for every citizen in this land.
I'm Senator Al Gore from Tennessee, and I'd like to welcome you to our home here outside of Washington, where we live when the United States Senate is in session. I'd like to introduce my wife, Tipper, and our children, Kristen, who is 10, Sarah, who is 8, Corinna, who is 13, and Albert, who is 4.5. We live here, and also, as do many members of the House and Senate, we have another home in our home state. We live on a farm near Carthage, Tennessee, which is 50 miles from Nashville. I actually grew up in Carthage, Tennessee, and in Washington, D.C., because my family was in politics. My father served in the United States Senate. After college, I volunteered for the Army and went to Vietnam. And when I came back, I went to work as a newspaper reporter, and I got into the real estate development business and home building. I went to graduate school, first in religion and then to law school. And then several years ago, I decided to jump into politics as a newspaper reporter running for Congress. I was elected in 1976, and for the last 11 years, I've served in the House and Senate, specializing in issues such as nuclear arms control, protecting the environment, revitalizing our economy and focusing on growth and jobs, and improving our health care system. I believe I can make a difference for this country, and I'd like to have your support in 1988.
Hi, I'm Bruce Babbitt. This is my wife, Hattie. She's a lawyer. Christopher and TJ, my sons. I grew up in northern Arizona in this incredible country here. Right over my shoulder is a place called Cathedral Rock. It belongs to my kids, to me, Hattie, to all of you, the people of the United States. So we spent a lot of time out here in Arizona working on these environmental values and preserving America's heritage. I left Arizona after high school to go to college at Notre Dame to study, predictably, I suppose, geology. I was doing graduate work in geology in South America in the 1960s. When I began to see human problems, my eyes opened to the realities of poverty and suffering and starvation. And it changed the course of my life. I finally came back to the United States, went on to Harvard Law School, and it was in my third year of law school that I began to understand what was happening in the South in the 60s. And I wound up in Selma, Alabama, in the midst of the events that have come to be known as Bloody Sunday. I stayed on in the South for a couple of years as a federal civil rights and anti-poverty worker. But ultimately, I knew I had to come home, and I met Hattie in Texas. We came home and planted our roots, started a family, and I moved on, of course, into politics. I ran first for Attorney General, became governor, and spent a lot of good times, good years, working on the environment, health care for kids, a lot of energy into public education, our relationships with Mexico, dealing with all of the upside of a vigorous, dynamic, growing state. I left office in January, and I suppose it was almost inevitable that after a few family meetings, a couple of long weekends up here thinking about our future, we agreed that the next step would be the road to the White House.